Mother's Day made me realize that in my family being useful had never meant being loved. It started with something so ordinary that I almost missed the moment my life changed. I was standing in my kitchen, checking the final confirmation for the next morning, making sure the brunch reservation was still set. The flowers were still scheduled, and the photographer still had the correct time. Everything was already handled. Everything was already paid for. Everything was under my name, the way it always was, when my family wanted something to look effortless. Then my phone lit up with the family group chat. My mother tagged me in front of everyone and wrote, "Stay home tomorrow. Don't come. We're tired of your side of the family." For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen. Not because I was confused, but because there was no gentle way to misunderstand it. My husband and my children were not family to them. They were noise. They were baggage. They were the people my mother wanted removed from the picture before the nice Mother's Day photos were taken. Then my father liked the message. A moment later, my sister reacted like it was funny. I typed back, "So that's what we are to you." No one answered. They just kept talking over me, joking about outfits, brunch, flowers, and the summer vacation they were already planning, as if I had not just been told to disappear. That was when something inside me went completely still. I did not cry. I did not ask them to explain. I set my phone on the counter, opened my email, then my banking app. Then every account they had forgotten was connected to me. They thought I would still show up. They thought I would still pay. They thought I would swallow the insult, because that was what I had always done. 10 minutes later, the group chat exploded. At 11 p.m., my sister tagged me. At 11:11 p.m., my mother tagged me. At 11:15 p.m., my father tagged me. All of them non-stop. And that was when they realized the woman they told to stay home was the only reason Mother's Day was happening at all. Before I tell you what disappeared that night, why they panicked before midnight, and how one message exposed years of disrespect, tell me what the weather is like, where you are watching from, and whether it matches your mood right now. Also, let me know where you are watching from, because I am curious to see how far this story will travel. I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, and in a house where image mattered more than honesty. My mother, Denise Langford, cared deeply about how our family looked from the outside. The lawn had to be trimmed before neighbors could notice. The Christmas card had to look polished. The church potluck had to make people say, "Denise, you always do things so beautifully." My father, Russell Langford, was quieter, but he protected that image just as fiercely by never correcting her when she was wrong. If my mother said something cruel, he called it stress. If my sister, Chelsea Langford, created chaos, he called it a rough season. If I got hurt, he called it being sensitive. Chelsea was the daughter everyone noticed first. She had the bright smile, the perfect hair, the easy confidence, and the talent for making every room feel like it had been waiting for her to walk in. My mother loved that. Chelsea was the one she posted about. Chelsea was the one she took shopping before family events. Chelsea was the one who got praised for showing up, even when other people had done the work that made the event possible. I was different. I was the practical one, the calm one, the one who remembered birthdays, cleaned up kitchens, handled details, and noticed problems before they became embarrassing. When I was 12, I learned how to make dinner because my mother was tired and Chelsea had dance practice. When I was 14, I learned how to calm my father down when Bill stressed him out. When I was 16, I learned that saying, "I need help too," only made everyone look at me like I had broken some silent agreement. Chelsea got softness. I got expectations. If she cried, everyone gathered around her. If I cried, my mother said, "Serena, you're stronger than that." For years, I believed that was a compliment. I thought being strong meant I was trusted. I thought being dependable meant I mattered. But looking back, I understand that strength became the word they used whenever they wanted me to accept less. When Chelsea turned 16, My parents helped her get a used convertible because my mother said she needed freedom and confidence. When I turned 16, I got a bus pass and a reminder that independence builds character. And when Chelsea forgot her responsibilities, my mother said she was young. When I made one mistake, I got a speech about maturity. Every lesson in our house seemed to have two versions. And one version protected Chelsea. The other version trained me to sacrifice quietly. Mother's Day was always the clearest example. My mother treated it like a royal holiday. She expected flowers, brunch, cards, and photos, gifts, and gratitude. But she rarely seemed interested in the kind of love that did not come wrapped in performance. When I was 17, I saved money from my weekend job and baked her a lemon cake from scratch because she once mentioned loving lemon desserts when she was younger. I stayed up late making it, cleaned the kitchen afterward, and placed it on the counter the next morning with a handmade card. She smiled for 2 seconds, then turned to Chelsea because Chelsea had bought her a scarf from a boutique downtown. And my mother held that scarf up like it was a family treasure. My cake sat untouched until the frosting started to dry. That was my childhood in one picture. My work was useful. Chelsea's gestures were precious. And the worst part was that nobody ever said it openly. Nobody sat me down and said, "Serena, your job is to make life easier for the rest of us." They simply acted like it was true until I believed it too. And if my mother needed someone to pick up groceries, she called me. If my father needed help understanding a bill, he called me. If Chelsea had another emergency, and everyone expected me to care more about fixing it than asking why it kept happening. And I did. I showed up again and again because I thought that was what love looked like. And I thought if I stayed patient enough, gave enough, forgave enough, and proved myself enough, one day my family would look at me with the same warmth they gave Chelsea for simply existing. That day never came. And instead, the older I got, the more they leaned on me. Their gratitude shrank while their expectations grew. By the time I left home, I had already been trained to confuse being needed with being loved. And that mistake followed me for years, and it almost cost me the family I built for myself. When I married Cole Hartwell, I honestly thought things would change. I was 30 years old, building a steady life, working hard, paying my own bills, and finally living in a home where peace did not depend on whether my mother approved of the mood in the room. Cole was patient in a way I was not used to, and he did not raise his voice to win arguments. He did not use guilt to get what he wanted. He noticed small things and remembered them. And the first time my mother called during our dinner and I stood up automatically to answer, he watched me quietly. After I hung up, he asked, "Did she call to see how you were, or did she call because she needed something?" I defended her immediately. That was my habit. I said she was just overwhelmed. I said family helps family. And I said he did not understand our dynamic yet. Cole did not argue. He just said, "I understand more than you think." He was right. My mother rarely called without a request attached. And my father rarely reached out unless there was a problem he wanted me to solve, without making him feel like he had asked. Chelsea came in waves of crisis, each one more urgent than the last. A late car payment, a rent shortage, a business expense, a credit card balance, a mistake she framed as bad luck. And somehow everyone looked toward me like I was the emergency fund they did not have to respect. When our daughter Maya was born, I thought maybe becoming a mother would finally make my mother see me differently. I thought she would understand me in a new way. Instead, she came to the hospital, took a few pictures, and kissed Maya on the forehead, then stepped into the hallway because Chelsea was upset about a fight with her boyfriend. I remember lying there exhausted and aching, and listening to my mother's voice become soft and focused for Chelsea in a way it had not been for me. even while I held my newborn daughter. I told myself not to be dramatic. I told myself, at least she came, and that was how I survived my family. I lowered the standard, then thanked them for barely meeting it. When our son Ethan was born, the pattern was even clearer. My mother visited late, and my father said traffic was bad. Chelsea sent a message about how busy she was and somehow turned my son's birth into a complaint about her week. Still, I kept trying. I invited them to birthdays, and I sent photos. I made sure Maya and Ethan knew their grandparents and aunt. I wanted my children to have the family I had always wished I had. But my mother never treated them like they fully belonged. And Maya was too sensitive. Ethan was too loud. Cole was too quiet. Our schedule was inconvenient. Our presence was tolerated, not welcomed. At family dinners, and Chelsea's stories took up the whole table, while my children were corrected for normal child behavior. If Maya asked a question during adult conversation, and my mother gave me that tight smile that meant control your child. If Ethan laughed too loudly, my father sighed like we had brought chaos into a museum. But Chelsea could arrive late, interrupt everyone, and spill wine, complain about her clients, and somehow still be treated like the evening's main event. What made it worse was that I was still helping pay for the version of family that excluded us, and I covered my mother's credit card payments when she overspent on clothes and home decorations she said were necessary for hosting, and I paid overdue HOA fees for my parents after my father claimed a billing error had created a problem, and I covered advertising costs for Chelsea's real estate listings because she said one strong month would help her get ahead. I paid deposits for family dinners, holiday rentals, and weekend trips that were planned around everyone else and explained to me afterward that year Mother's Day was supposed to be special. My mother wanted a waterfront brunch in Charleston, and something elegant enough for photos, but casual enough for her to pretend she was not trying too hard. She wanted flowers on the table, a photographer for family portraits, matching color tones, and a reservation time that would catch the best light near the water. She talked about it for weeks, like she was planning a magazine spread. She never asked if I could afford it, and she simply talked around the cost until I stepped in the way I always had. I booked the private room. I paid the deposit. I upgraded the flowers because Chelsea said the standard arrangements looked cheap, and I added the photographer because my mother wanted one beautiful picture of the whole family for once, and I even placed a deposit on the Hilton Head vacation rental my mother kept hinting about in the group chat because she said this summer might be the last time everyone could get together before life got too busy. And Cole watched me do all of it with a sadness that made me defensive. He did not tell me what to do, he just asked me to add it up. So one night after the kids were asleep, I did. Between my parents, Chelsea, and family events, emergencies, and quiet transfers, I had spent more than $27,000 in the last year alone. I stared at that number until it blurred, and then I still went ahead with Mother's Day because some part of me thought maybe this time, if everything was beautiful enough, my mother would look at me and see love instead of usefulness. And the night before Mother's Day, she finally told me what she saw. She saw my husband and children as my side of the family. She saw us as something separate, something unwanted, and something to leave at home after my money had already done its job. After my mother's message, the kitchen felt unnaturally quiet, not peaceful, not calm, and just quiet in the way a room feels after something breaks, and no one has moved enough to pick up the pieces. Cole read the message twice. I watched his face change, not into anger exactly, but into the kind of stillness people get when the truth finally stops hiding. He placed my phone back on the counter and said, "If they do not want us there, and they do not get to use you to make tomorrow beautiful." That sentence landed harder than anything else that night. For years, I had been trained to separate the insult from the obligation. And they could hurt me, and I would still help. They could dismiss my children, and I would still pay. They could treat Cole like an outsider, and I would still show up with a polite smile, because keeping the peace had always been my responsibility. But Cole's words cut through that old training. If they did not want us there, why was my name on every reservation? Why was my card holding the brunch? Why was my money securing the flowers? The photographer and the vacation my mother was joking about, as if I had not just been erased from it. I sat at the kitchen island and opened my laptop. My hands were not shaking. That surprised me. I expected tears. I expected guilt. I expected the old panic that usually rushed in whenever I considered disappointing my family. But this time there was only clarity. First, I opened the waterfront restaurant reservation portal. The private room for Mother's Day was listed under my name, with my card attached to the remaining balance. I looked at the notes my mother had made me add: window seating preferred, soft florals, space for family photos, mimosa bar. I remembered her voice telling me it needed to feel effortless. I almost laughed at that word. Effortless had always meant my effort, hidden well enough for everyone else to enjoy. I clicked cancel. A confirmation window appeared asking if I was sure. I was. Then I opened the florist invoice. The upgraded arrangements Chelsea had called classier were scheduled for delivery to the restaurant the next morning. I canceled those too. Next came the photographer. That one stung for a moment because I had imagined Maya in a pale blue dress, Ethan with his crooked little grin, Cole standing beside me, all of us finally included in a family photo that did not make us feel like extras. Then I remembered my mother's words: "We are tired of your side of the family." I canceled the session and removed my card. After that, I opened the Hilton Head rental account. My mother had been bragging in the chat about how perfect the house would be for summer, how close it was to the beach, how everyone could relax, and how the whole family needed time together. The deposit had come from me. The account was under my email because my mother said she hated dealing with booking websites. I canceled the hold. The policy kept part of the deposit, and for once I did not care. The cost of losing that money was smaller than the cost of continuing to buy a place in a family that did not want mine. Then I moved to the regular payments. My mother's credit card autopay was first. She had called it temporary 6 months earlier. I removed my checking account. My parents' HOA fees were next. My father had told me he would take them back over in March. It was now May. I stopped the scheduled transfer. Then I opened the marketing platform Chelsea used for her real estate listings. My card was still attached because she had begged me to cover one campaign during a slow month. That slow month had become a habit. I deleted my payment method, and each click felt less like revenge and more like returning stolen weight. My phone kept lighting up while I worked, but not with apologies. They were still chatting. Chelsea was talking about what she planned to wear. My mother was asking whether cream or pale green looked better in photos. My father made a joke about needing to look cheerful because Mother's Day was more demanding than tax season. They were comfortable. That was what finally made me cold. They had insulted us and moved on because they believed I would absorb it. They believed I would come back to the conversation once I calmed down. They believed the machine would keep running because the machine always had. At 10:51 p.m., the first confirmation email arrived from the restaurant. The Mother's Day reservation had been canceled by the account holder. At 10:54, the photographer sent a notice confirming the session cancellation. At 10:57, the vacation rental sent an email about the released hold. I did not send screenshots. I did not announce anything, and I just turned my phone face down and sat there beside Cole in the quiet for the first time in my life. I allowed my family to experience the result of their own words without rushing in to soften it for them. And 3 minutes later, the first tag came through. At exactly 11 p.m., Chelsea tagged me in the family group chat. Serena, what did you do to the photographer? And a second message came before I could even finish reading the first. Are you serious right now? Fix it. I stared at the screen, feeling nothing at first. Not satisfaction, not panic, not guilt, just a strange distance, like I was watching a scene I had already survived in my mind many times before. At 11:03 she wrote, Mom is going to be humiliated. Do you even care? That was almost funny in the saddest way. 10 minutes earlier, my mother had told me not to come to Mother's Day because she was tired of my family. Now Chelsea wanted me to care about humiliation. At 11 p.m., my mother tagged me. Sweetheart, do not be dramatic. Mother's Day is tomorrow. Sweetheart, she always reached for softness when control stopped working. Not when I was hurt, and not when my children were excluded, only when consequences arrived. Then she wrote, I think you misunderstood what I meant. I looked back at her original message. Stay home. Don't come. We're tired of your side of the family. There was no misunderstanding waiting inside those words. At 11:15 p.m., my father tagged me. Call me right now. Your mother is crying. There it was. Not. Are you okay? Not. That message was wrong. Not. I should not have liked it. His concern began where my mother's tears began. Mine had never been urgent to him. I did not answer. The chat kept moving faster. Chelsea said, I was ruining everything over one rude sentence. My mother said she had only meant the kids might be more comfortable at home. My father said this was not how family handled conflict. And I almost typed back, no, this is how family handles access being revoked. But I stopped. Cole sat beside me at the kitchen island, one hand resting over mine. He did not tell me to calm down, and he did not tell me to forgive them. He simply said, you do not have to respond to people who are only sorry they lost something. So I stayed silent, and in that silence, memories came one after another, and sharper than I expected. I remembered Maya's 7th birthday, when my mother promised she would come early to help decorate, and then canceled, because Chelsea needed someone to go with her to look at a house for a client. I remembered Ethan's preschool performance, when my father said he could not make it because he was tired, and then posted pictures the same evening from a dinner with Chelsea. And I remembered Thanksgiving, when I paid for half the catering and still ended up at the folding table near the hallway because my mother said the main table looked better with fewer chairs. And I remembered every time my children were treated like disruptions in a family I was still expected to fund. Around midnight, my mother started calling. I watched her name flash across the screen and then disappear, then flash again. Chelsea called next, then my father, then my mother again. The voicemails came in waves. My mother's voice was soft in the first one, and telling me everyone was emotional, and I needed to think about the bigger picture. In the second, she was crying. In the third, she said, I was punishing her on the one day that was supposed to honor mothers. That line almost got to the old version of me. The old version would have felt cruel, and the old version would have imagined her embarrassed in front of relatives and rushed to repair everything before mourning. But then I thought about what kind of mother I wanted to be to Maya and Ethan. And did I want my daughter to watch me buy love from people who insulted her? Did I want my son to learn that family could disrespect his father and still expect his mother to smile? No. By morning, and the situation had grown beyond the group chat. The restaurant released the private room because no replacement payment was provided. The photographer booked booked another last-minute family session, and the florist canceled delivery. The Hilton head rental was no longer being held. My mother's beautiful Mother's Day plan, the one she had been polishing for weeks, collapsed before breakfast, and the reason it collapsed was not because I destroyed it. It collapsed because it had been built on my willingness to be disrespected quietly. Around 8:30 a.m., an aunt texted me asking if brunch had moved because my mother was being vague. A cousin asked why the photographer said the session was canceled. Someone else messaged, "Is everything okay with your mom?" And that was when I understood what my family really feared. Not the loss of brunch, not the loss of flowers. Exposure. For years, they had hidden their dependence on me behind the image of a close and generous family. Now the image was cracking, and for the first time, I was not rushing to hold it together. By late morning, my mother had stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding, and her messages became sharper, cleaner, more honest in the way panic sometimes makes people honest. A good daughter would not do this to her mother on Mother's Day. And Chelsea followed with "You are making everyone look bad." My father wrote, "This needs to be handled privately." That one made me pause. They always wanted my pain private and my help public. And they wanted the brunch public. They wanted the photos public. They wanted the vacation public. They wanted the image of family unity public. But the moment the truth threatened that image, suddenly privacy mattered. I made coffee, sat at the dining room table, and opened my laptop again. Cole took the kids into the living room and turned on cartoons, but Maya came back twice to check on me. The second time she asked, "Mom, are you okay?" I looked at my daughter and realized she had asked me the question my own father still had not. I hugged her, told her I was okay, and promised we would have our own Mother's Day later. Then I got to work. I downloaded bank statements. I searched old emails. I opened Venmo, Zelle, credit card confirmations, reservation receipts, and transfer histories, and screenshots I had never planned to use. The more I gathered, the more obvious the pattern became. And there was the $500 I sent my mother after she said the credit card company was pressuring her. There were the HOA payments my father said he would repay after 1 month. And there were the real estate marketing charges for Chelsea's listings. There were restaurant deposits, holiday contributions, grocery deliveries, pharmacy bills, repair invoices, gift funds, vacation deposits, and emergency transfers that had stopped feeling like emergencies when I saw how often they happened. I added everything carefully because I did not want drama. I wanted accuracy. And when I finished, the total for the last 5 years was $46,870. I sat there looking at the number, and for the first time I did not feel foolish. I felt awake. That money had not been stolen from me, but the meaning of it had been twisted. I had offered help as love. They had accepted it as entitlement. I took a picture of the table covered in printed receipts, then posted it in the family group chat. Under it I wrote, "This is what I have paid for this family, while you called my husband and children my side of the family." The chat went quiet for almost a full minute. Then my mother answered, "Family helps family." I typed back, "Family also respects family." Chelsea jumped in immediately. "You are being manipulative. You are trying to make Mom look bad on Mother's Day." I sent the screenshot of my mother's message. Then I sent the screenshot of my father liking it, and Chelsea reacting like it was funny. "I did not make anyone look bad," I wrote, "I let everyone see what you said." My father responded, "Serena, call me. This is not appropriate for the group." I wrote, "It was appropriate for the group when I was told not to come. It can stay in the group now." That was when relatives started reacting. My aunt asked, "Wait, Serena paid for the brunch." A cousin wrote, "I thought Denise arranged all of this." Someone else asked, "Why would you tell her children not to come?" My mother tried to recover quickly. She wrote that I was twisting her words, that she had been tired, that she only wanted a calm day, and that young children made events stressful, that I should have known what she meant. Every explanation made it worse, because what she meant was exactly the problem. And Chelsea sent a long message accusing me of punishing everyone because I could not take a joke. I answered with one sentence. A joke is supposed to be funny to the person being laughed at. And then Chelsea made the mistake that finished it. She wrote, "None of this would have happened if you had just kept the reservation like a normal person." I stared at that sentence for a long time, and not because it hurt, but because it revealed everything. She did not say, "None of this would have happened if Mom had not hurt you." She did not say, "None of this would have happened if Dad had defended you." And she did not say, "None of this would have happened if I had not laughed." Her problem was that I had stopped paying. So I wrote, "Thank you for making it clear. You did not want me respected, and you wanted the reservation." After that, I sent the final list. The Mother's Day brunch was canceled. The photographer was canceled. The florist was canceled. The Hilton Head rental was released, and my card was removed from the marketing platform. My checking account was removed from Mom's credit card autopay. The HOA transfers were stopped. Any future financial help was over. My father finally wrote, "Anne, are you really cutting off your own family over one message?" I answered, "No, I am stepping away after years of being used." The message only made it impossible to keep pretending. And my mother sent 3 crying emojis, then wrote, "I cannot believe my own daughter would embarrass me like this." I looked at those words and felt the last thread snap. And she still thought the wound was her embarrassment, not my exclusion. I wrote one final message. "I am done paying to be disrespected. Do not contact me unless you are ready to apologize to Cole, Maya, Ethan, and me." Then I left the group chat. I blocked Chelsea first, because I knew her anger would be the loudest. I blocked my mother next, because her guilt would be the most practiced. And I blocked my father last, because his silence had protected them for too long. The silence that followed felt strange for about 2 seconds. Then it felt like air. That afternoon, I did not go to a waterfront brunch. I did not fix the reservation. I did not call the florist. I did not comfort my mother through the consequences of her own words. I stayed home, and not because she told me to, but because I chose the home where I was actually loved. And Cole made pancakes for dinner, because Ethan insisted pancakes tasted better when grown-ups stopped pretending they were only breakfast food. Maya made me a card covered in crooked hearts and wrote, "Thank you for choosing us." I had to sit down after reading that. Children notice more than we want them to. They notice when their mother gets quiet after certain phone calls, and they notice when adults treat them like problems. They notice when feels like something their mother has to earn. That day, I decided my children would not learn that from me anymore. Later, Maya asked if I was sad that Grandma did not want us there. I told her the truth in the gentlest way I could. I said, "I am sad she said it, but I am proud we did not beg to be loved." And that became the real Mother's Day lesson in our house. Love is not supposed to make you erase your own family to keep another one comfortable. Helping people can be beautiful, but help without respect becomes a trap. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are how we teach people that kindness is not the same as permission. For years, I thought being a good daughter meant saying yes, paying quietly, forgiving quickly, and making sure no one else felt uncomfortable. But that only taught the wrong people that they could wound me and still count on me to make their lives easier. The lesson I want my children to carry is different. Family should be a place where your presence matters more than your usefulness. Family should not require a receipt, a performance, or a silent sacrifice. And if someone only values you when you are solving their problems, you are allowed to stop calling that love. A few days later, my mother sent an email that said, "I am sorry if you felt hurt." And I read it once and closed it. That was not accountability. That was an attempt to reopen the door without admitting who slammed it first. Maybe one day she will understand. Maybe she will not. But I am no longer building my peace around her ability to be fair. That Mother's Day, I lost the illusion of the family I thought I had, but I gained something better. I gained the courage to protect the family I had built. And if you have ever been the person everyone depends on, but no one truly sees, I hope you remember this. You do not have to keep paying the price of belonging in a place that only welcomes what you provide. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say enough. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and your children is to stop proving your worth to people who benefited from pretending not to see it. My team and I are working hard to create stories that's dramatic enough to entertain, but meaningful enough to leave a lasting message. Everything in this video is fictional and not intended only for storytelling and educational purposes. We hope the story reminds viewers that betrayal can hurt deeply, but it can also become the beginning of a stronger and wiser